Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. And we are streaming today on the Facebook page of our content partner, Activist Post. So that's facebook.com/Activist Post. Well, today, this is a show that I've been waiting for all week. Last week, we came in, the Vegas shooting had just happened. I presented a theory that at the time, people were like, their first reaction is, that's so outlandish. What are you smoking? Like, get off of this. This is what, before we had any information, I came in and I said, I believe that this was a drone's weapons test. Now, what's interesting is, as of today, this week, you'll notice that if you go to Google News, for instance, the Vegas shooting has basically vanished off the top stories. It's even vanished out of the U.S. stories. One of the reasons why is because they don't know what the fuck happened. They have no motive for this guy, know nothing. And everybody across the world, everybody, even mainstream people are like, this story stinks. And as of yet, I have still not heard any explanation or theory that holds as much water as my own. Now, what's interesting is that we are going to get into telling a story today. Our guest is Ray Vahi of BitChute. He's going to be towards the end of the show. We have about an hour and a half to tell a story. To help me do that, and we'll talk more about this, to help me do that, as always, is my good friend, co-host and producer, Mr. Christian Reyes. Christian, good morning.
Good morning, Vin.
Okay. So we've spoken throughout the week, and we've talked a little bit this morning.
Yeah.
I want to get into this. I'm looking at my show notes. There. Okay, I've got them. Great. So, we've been talking a little bit this morning about, I want to explain to people what it is that we're going to do, because it's different than what I'm seeing.
Very different.
Okay, so you know that I hate the conspiracy theory shit.
Right.
I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go into it. Mm-hmm. I don't discuss it. One of the reasons why is because, as I've always said, and we do deep dives on this show, and what we try to do is we go as close to source material as we possibly can. We look at it, we examine what's actually there, the connections that are actually there. We rarely go outside of the story, right? Because what's inside the story is there. You don't need to add shit.
Right.
You don't need to add shit, right? We've done that on many issues. We've done that on several hacking issues. We've done that on the Russian connection to the elections. Mm-hmm. We've done that on the WannaCry situation, right? Yeah. We've done that on we've done that on DAPL, right? Since the beginning of the show, the Dakota Access Pipeline, right? Since the beginning of the show, what I'm interested in is the information is out there. Let's go out there and get it, right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to tell a story. And I want to say that up front, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, this story has two parts to it. The first thing that we're going to do is, let me put it like this. The main problem that I have with most of these conspiracy theorist people and adding in shit like, and I'm going to tell you what I mean, adding in shit like crisis actors and all of this, that, it was staged, nobody died, and they did and this and that. And I'm like, the reason I have a problem with that is it's so much conjecture and there's zero proof. Mm-hmm. And the other part about it is their story contradicts the facts that we know on the ground. Like, to discount a story of a crisis actor, basically all you have to do is show that one of the people that they've said is a crisis actor is a real fucking person.
Right.
The other thing that you get into is you start to slander people. Mm-hmm. Like, where is your proof coming from? Mm-hmm. Your proof is coming from because this person kind of looks like this other person?
Yeah.
That's what paranoid schizophrenics do. Mm-hmm. What paranoid schizophrenics do is they have some grand conspiracy that goes on in their mind, and then every single person in the world, they find a way to include in their grand unified theory, right? But that's not what a prosecutor does, and that's what we're going to try to look at here. Like what we were saying before the show started, I said, look, fundamentally, in any criminal case, what you're talking about is you're talking about two stories. Mm-hmm. The prosecutor's going to tell a story. The defense is going to tell a story. And the jury's going to look, and the jury's going to say, which story is more believable? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be the difference between guilty and not guilty. Mm-hmm. You look at the O.J. Simpson trial. If it doesn't fit, it must acquit. Johnny Cochran and Dershowitz and all of those guys, they told a story. They told a story that was better than the one that Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden told. And that was it. Now, right now, the official story is being told by the police, by the FBI, everybody involved. Already, that story smells so bad.
Yeah.
No one fucking believes it.
Nobody believes it.
No one believes it.
Even people that I would think would believe it don't.
Just your mainstream
Just
average
person.
Okay. I think that that's the first thing to notice about this story. Because what you're looking for, and we talked about this earlier, what you're looking for when you're trying to get to the core of a crime, when a crime is committed, and clearly something's being covered up. I think everybody gets at that.
Right.
The one thing that you want to look at, and the one thing that's the most important that any investigator is looking for, is they're looking for inconsistencies, right? That's why investigators want to bring somebody in and interrogate them. That's why they want to give them a polygraph.
Right.
Because they want the person who is innocent can tell a complete story. Where were you on the night of such and such and such? What were you doing at blah, blah, blah? What was your relationship with the victim? All of these things. An innocent person can tell a complete story with no inconsistencies. See, a guilty person has to put in inconsistencies in the story. And what a tangled web we weave when we practice to deceive.
Yeah, seriously.
And I think that what people are seeing from the official story is purposeful deception.
Exactly.
It's not that there's anything in particular that you can point to, but it's that there's all of these things, that inconsistencies, and they pop up and then they somehow have some weird explanation where people are like, that doesn't make sense.
One thing I found interesting was the confusion that's going on. And I started researching confusion and what it does, and there's a hypnotic presence with confusion. And actually Milton Erickson said that it's probably one of the most powerful ways that you can hypnotize.
It's confusion.
Yeah, it's through confusion.
Yeah.
So
it's certainly for what they call the it's got a name, fast induction or quick induction.
Right.
They often use the look over here, bah! Like that.
Right.
You know, it's
right.
like it does something
fries
to your brain.
Fries your mind,
right.
and you don't know what to think, and then you can slip in a command. You can slip in, you know.
Right.
So yeah, there's that there. I started looking at. It's been a crazy week too. I started looking at the energetic, trauma or energetic principles attached to this as well. And one thing that I found consistent, and this actually put up a quote right before the show, is fear. The amount of fear that's being injected.
Well, but here's what's interesting. I think that this is a key point that you're bringing up and why this is different. So it goes to, a lot of people have called this a false flag. The reason why this isn't a false flag is directly because of fear.
Exactly.
Okay? But there's a lot less fear. This particular act, even though it was the more people killed in this mass shooting than in others, there's been a lot less fear. Here's some of the reasons why. All adults.
Yeah.
Okay? All, for the most part, kind of vanilla, mostly white people. Mostly from places where there's not a huge political bent to it. I said in a tweet, I was like, if you were going to kill a group of people that the media would care the least about, who would you kill and where would you do it? And if it's not at a country music festival, I don't know where the fuck it is. Because look, that place, that venue, does a lot of things. It does things where it's kids stuff, where there would be more young people. You know, it does like Warped. It does Warped Tour is there. They have, they do motocross jumping there. They do all kinds of stuff. They're about to have like R&B stuff there the next week that they canceled, right? They didn't kill black people, didn't kill Mexicans, right? They killed the ones that would generate the least fear. So that's something different,
right?
Because if you're really if what your goal is to move people because of course it creates fear. Mm-hmm. Of course, right? But if your goal is to move people with fear, you do things that create maximum fear, mm-hmm. such as the idea that another person like him could be on the loose. Mm-hmm. Right? So it would be, you have a white supremacist do it. Right. You have a Muslim do mm-hmm. it. You have a fucking North Korean do it.
Right, the extreme polar opposites of each other.
But that's not what happened here, right? Mm-hmm. So what we're looking at is these. So now we're getting into the beginnings of why, to me, this thing, it's important to look at the inconsistencies. Now, here's the key, and this is what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about what we know, what's been reported.
Yeah, what's being reported right now. And
but a lot of what we're going to talk about are not the things that anybody has heard and you won't hear in the official story. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about all of the inconsistencies in the official story, and when you see this broad range of inconsistencies, you see what they all stand for, right? Mm-hmm. We've got a lot to get through. Let's go for it. The first thing that we're going to get at is we're going to get at the latest press conference, which was the press conference from Friday, okay? I've got clips from that. I may have you leave our mics open because I may have you pause it, so be sure to go and put your finger over on the pause button. Let's just start with the press conference and what we know. So this is basically the official story as it's being told right now. Let's go press conference.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kevin McMahill. I'm the Undersheriff for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And I am going to be providing you an update this afternoon on the Route 91 Music Festival mass murder. To date, we have run down well more than 1,000 leads in this investigation. While some of it has helped create a better profile into the madness of this suspect, we do not still have a clear motive or reason why. I can assure you that we are aware of all aspects of this case, to include the rumor, innuendo, and supposition by many in the public. And I get it. We all want answers. We have looked at everything, literally, to include the suspect's personal life, any political affiliation, his social behaviors, economic situation, and any particular or potential radicalization that so many have claimed. We're also aware, of course, that ISIS has repeatedly claimed responsibility, which today I can tell you that we have no known nexus to. We have been down each and every single one of these paths trying to determine why, to determine who else may have known of these plans. We will continue to investigate each and every one of these areas, as well as all the tips and leads that continue to come in. We must remain focused solely on truth and fact. It's very easy to assume. We're collectively working with the FBI and many other partners to try to get there. At this time, I'll tell you again that we have no credible information to report to you as to motivation. We will not stop, and we'll keep you up to date as anything develops on that. I will tell you, though, that all of the rumor and speculation has not been helpful to our investigation. In the past, terror attacks or mass murder incidents, motive was made very clear in most of those cases, by a note that was left, by a social media post, by a telephone call that was made, by investigators mining computer data. Today, in our investigation, we don't have any of that uncovered. I wish we did. We will and are continuing to investigate with great tenacity and hope to arrive at an answer.
Okay, pause it.
Most of you also now know the name of the man.
Okay, so here's what we've got. Absolutely no. Don't need to go back to us. We'll do it with it here with just the voiceover. Absolutely no motive. This is what he's saying, and he's also saying we've gone down every single path. I think that's key. The other thing that's very key about this, now that we have it paused, do you see anything that stands out to you about this shot right here? Is there anything that stands out to you about this shot?
Yeah, the guy in the background.
Yeah. What stands out? So that guy, I will tell you, because he speaks later, although I I cut that piece because it's not important to this. He's been around. He's an FBI agent. So that's the head of the FBI that is investigating this. What do you find interesting about his body language?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say his body language is very telling.
What is his body language communicating to you?
That he's protecting something. That he's making sure that something does not get told.
Yes. He's there controlling this guy, right? Mm-hmm. He's there standing there. The closeness that he is to him. Mm-hmm. The way that he's got his hands held in front of him.
Even the look on his face.
The look on his face.
Yeah.
His body language is so important. The people who are watching, watch this, because exactly what Christian said, that's exactly what his body language said to me as well. That's one reason why I believe that the police, I do believe that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police believes that they know, and I believe that there are things that are being withheld from them. As he said, they've gone down every path that they could. Mm-hmm. I believe that there are paths that they're being prevented from. So let's continue on. He's going to talk about the security guard.
LA Bay security guard who you've all named in the media, and I'll just reaffirm to you that Jesus Campos is a true hero. I can tell you now just a little bit more that I know about what he did that particular day. We now know that he was dispatched to what they call a door alarm on the 32nd floor. He went up there to investigate the open door, and as he was doing his job diligently, he came under fire by our suspect. As you know, he was struck in the leg. He turned around and retreated. He notified his dispatch, which was absolutely critical to us knowing the location, as well as advising the responding officers as they arrived on that 32nd floor. I can tell you that this was a remarkable effort by a brave and remarkable man. I want to say today that I don't think we've done a good enough job recognizing him and his actions, and for that I apologize. I just want to take the moment and clear the record that he's an absolute hero. There's also a couple of questions that...
Okay, so what we have now is that we know how he was discovered as being in that room was that the security guard went up there because there was an open door at one of the other rooms. Mm-hmm. So now, for those people who don't know about Las Vegas hotels, I know these hotels inside and out. So what I can tell you is the doors are heavy and they close automatically. Yeah. The only way that a door can stay open, there's basically one of two ways. Either one, the typical way that people leave it open is there's a door latch, mm-hmm. or you can, sometimes there's one at the bottom that if you close the door latch and then push the door over it, the door stays open. Or that if you turn the latch and then you close it, that the door will stay open. Now, I've done that before. And I've never had security come up. Right. So I don't know how long one of those doors has to be open before security goes.
I watched a clip with Steve when he was, and this is procedure of when.
Okay, go ahead. It's probably very similar at MGM.
Yeah, he mentioned that it's probably similar, but he said that if a door has not been opened in the casino for 12 hours plus, that they go investigate. So they go knock on the door.
What do you mean if it hasn't been
opened? Yeah,
opened?
so if there's a do not disturb, or if the door if it's somebody is inside of the room, like
for 12 hours.
For 12 hours plus, that they would go and knock on the door and send room service.
Aha. So what we have here is the reverse of what the police are saying. They're saying that a door alarm is because a door is open. But like I say, I've done that, and I've never had security come, mm-hmm. and it's been there for a long time. What it sounds like we might be talking about in this case is no one's come out of that room for 12 hours.
Right.
This starts to get much more interesting. Although, to me, that seems silly because I know I've slept in a room at Wynn for longer than 12 hours and stayed in a room for longer than... Something's wrong.
Yeah, something doesn't make sense.
Because the other thing about it is that, like, as I say, I've been in and out of these hotels. I've never heard of this scenario that he's mm-hmm. describing of the open door. And then for it to be in the exact hallway, just by chance, mm-hmm. this is an inconsistency.
Yeah.
Right? So this is an inconsistency, but what it does do is it creates a scenario whereby we have ostensibly a live shooter in the room shooting out at a security guard at the specific time when the shooting is supposedly taking place. I think that's important.
It is.
I don't think that's a small thing. I think it's important. It's a fucking weird inconsistency in this whole thing. But it gives us at least a timeline. It gives us a timeline. Right. So let's go to the next inconsistency that I feel like is just being passed over, and even the police are like, oh, go ahead.
Continued to come in regards to this tannerite and what materials that we had. You all know we've given you this information about where we found the tannerite in the vehicle. Tannerite is a binary explosive, meaning that it's composed of two substances. We also had a significant amount of that tannerite as a finished product, and we had two chemicals of ammonium nitrate and aluminum powder that, when combined, make the finished product of tannerite. Sorry to tell you, I don't know what he was going to do with all of that tannerite. I wish I did, and we continue to try to find that information out. Okay, the question is, can we
Okay, so now we have tannerite, this explosive, that both the explosive itself and the two components that are necessary to make this explosive are found in his car. And they have no fucking clue what he's going to do with this explosive. This explosive is an inconsistency.
Yep.
This explosive is a dead-end alley, right? So you got to think, this explosive ties to nothing. It was obviously put in the car for some reason. Who would have a vested interest in putting a blind alley, something that would distract a certain amount of investigators and push them in another direction, right? This, to me, looks like sending somebody on a wild goose chase on purpose in a very cheap way, right? Very cheap. But one thing that we got to think about is tannerite, this particular, it's an individual who would know how to make an explosive.
Good point.
Person involved here is someone who knows how to make an explosive. Do we have any evidence that this guy was interested in explosives, that he had a chemistry background or anything like that? But it does speak to whoever put it in the car, doesn't it? It says that whoever put it in the car knows how to manufacture explosive weapons. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now what I want to do is he's going to answer questions. And this is important. What you and I are going to do, he's going to answer questions. These question and answer things are quick. But so we've seen a little bit of him talking. We've seen a little bit of him giving a statement. Now, what's interesting is this is the undersheriff. They stopped allowing the sheriff, Joe Lombardo, to talk.
Right.
Now, Joe Lombardo, you'll recall, had said some things like, hey, man, we know... Come on, you really believe he didn't have help? Blah, blah, blah. He had said a whole bunch... he had let a whole bunch of things go. Right? Joe doesn't get to talk anymore. Narrative has to be controlled. Now he's going to answer questions. And what I want you to look at while he's answering the question, more important than the answer to the question itself, is his body language and the body language of his FBI handler. So this first one is going to be about, it's a question about if there's an accomplice. Watch his body language and watch the body language of the handler.
Can we confirm whether there's an accomplice or not? I can tell you this, we're very confident that there was not another shooter in that room. What I cannot confirm to you today, and what we continue to investigate, is whether anybody else may have known about this incident before he carried it out. Right, the question is about the tannerite.
Okay. What did you see in that?
One, the FBI guy, I don't know his name. I don't want to say his name or anything. But the FBI guy was making sure that he said the right thing.
So he would make a statement, and the FBI guy would make a little nod.
Yeah, he would say, that's correct. And
you see that?
Yeah.
You catch that?
And almost with a little smirk, too.
And he hadn't been doing that throughout this whole process.
Right.
But it was almost like, yes, you gave the right answer. Now, what these are tells. These are micro expressions that people make that they don't even realize that they're making. Also, he's very nervous.
Yeah.
And You can tell that he's nervous because you're going to see him now answer about the tannerite where he's sure about the tannerite, and you're going to see how this answer differs from the last answer. So go ahead.
That we found, and whether we believe he was trying to make it into an IED, I can tell you we found it in the condition that it was, and it did not resemble an IED.
Pause. Okay, so you saw confident, hands in one place, not moving, not looking down, looking straight ahead. Confident. It's not an IED. I know for sure it's not an IED, right? This is a lie detector test right here. So let's go with this next one because this is interesting. This is about the video.
Question is, have we reviewed the video from the Mandalay Bay? I can tell you that there's voluminous amounts of video from many different locations. We have reviewed it, and we have not located any other person that we believe to be a suspect at this point.
So,
same thing.
Fidgeting.
Right.
You see him adjust his gun belt. Right? Looks down. His handler nods his head. He says, we can tell you there's voluminous amounts of video. Handler nods his head, keeps nodding, continuously nodding. Obviously, that voluminous amounts of video is probably one of that handler's exact words. And that's why he's like, yes, you're saying the exact thing.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. Next, this is about a room key.
Question is do we know that anybody else used a room key for the hotel room, and we do not believe that happened.
Pause.
Question is,
handler's moving, handler's nervous about this question, right? He's looking down. He looks down through almost the whole answer, right? About somebody using the room key. That was the two inconsistencies. There was an inconsistency of they found a phone charger that didn't match, and then that someone had used his room key when the car was out of the garage. Now, what people don't understand about this car out of the garage and somebody using the room key is that all the MGM properties have recently, it used to just be free self-parking. But now all the MGM properties, including Mandalay Bay, self-parking is pay.
You have to pay.
Now, when you pay, you go up to the machine, you press the button, the ticket comes out. Have you been in one of these?
Yeah.
What does it say? What does it say on the thing?
It has your license plate number.
License plate being checked.
Yep.
It associates your license plate with a timestamp of when you went into the garage and when you went out of the garage. So it came out, a report, and also all the room keys have a timestamp of when you go in and out of the room. Someone used his room key when his car was out of the garage. Now he's saying, no, we don't have, that's got to get memory hold because that's a huge inconsistency. Okay. Now this last one is about whether or not he's a schizophrenic. Remember, people were saying, oh, he's an undiagnosed schizophrenic. Okay, what do the police say?
About the medical status, that is another aspect of the investigation we're keenly interested in, and we're continuing to investigate that.
Okay, that's it, period. So, they don't think he's crazy, right? They don't have that. So here's what we've got. That's just the basics. From the body language, from what's being explained, what we do know is that the police have nothing. They have no motive. Now, there's been all of these articles that have popped up, CNN and all of this, and I've shared a few of them where they were like, why does it matter what his motive was? Why does motive matter? Right? So let's talk about, so people understand, why does motive matter? This is just throw this motive here. And I'll just read straight from it. This is why it matters. Means, motive, and opportunity. This is from Wikipedia. In U.S. criminal law, means, motive, and opportunity is a common summation of the three aspects of a crime that must be established before guilt can possibly be determined in a criminal proceeding. Respectively, they refer to the ability of the defendant to commit the crime, the means, the reason the defendant committed the crime, the motive, and whether the defendant had the chance to commit the crime, opportunity. Opportunity is most often disproved by use of an alibi, which can prove the accused was not able to commit the crime, as he or she did not have the correct set of circumstances to commit the crime as it occurred. Some crimes are motiveless, however. However, providing motive can often make it easier to convince a jury of the elements that must be proved for a conviction. So, Christian, what we're talking about here is means, motive, and opportunity. Any prosecutor and any investigator, if they're looking for a suspect, are looking for means, motive, and opportunity. If there's absolutely no motive, you probably have the wrong suspect.
Right.
Now, motive for a particular crime may not be necessary if the person, for instance, had a previous record of committing such crimes. What we were talking about earlier is the idea that if a rape occurs in a neighborhood and on that block lives a registered sex offender with a history of rape, you at least go knock on his door.
Right, exactly.
At the beginning of it all, he's the prime suspect. He's not the prime suspect because you know anything about the means or anything about his opportunity. But you know that this is someone with a history of rape, so they have a motive. Motive is so important. Any investigator will tell you when a murder occurs, 9 times out of 10, the spouse did it. The spouse did it. Mainly because the spouse will generally have all of those things. Means, motive, and certainly opportunity. But motive, the motive could either be money, an insurance payment, something like that.
It could
the
be
motive
number.
could be, so what are the motives? What are the motives if a typical murder, what are the motives? Money.
Money.
Right? You either want to steal it or whatever. What else? Historically, murder. Love triangle.
Yeah, I was going to say
Right?
anger.
Anger at a romantic thing. Either they're cheating or the killer is cheating with somebody and they want to start a new life with somebody, so they kill this person, right? These are the first things. So, I do believe that plays a role. So now, let's look at inconsistencies. Let's look at now what we know about the killer, Paddock, because he didn't have a previous criminal record. So when we're looking for motive, we're going to look at, was this consistent with the type of behavior that he had? Was he some sort of nut job, or was this consistent? Let's look at this habits.
Before Stephen Paddock unleashed his murderous assault on an innocent concert crowd, he called himself the biggest video poker player in the world, gambling up to $1 million in a single night, overnight, sleeping during the day, prescribed Valium for anxiousness. These are Stephen Paddock's own words as he testified in 2013 in his lawsuit against a Cosmopolitan hotel in Las Vegas. The suit stems from this moment. Security cameras catching Paddock slipping and falling in a casino walkway. In the 97-page deposition obtained exclusively by CNN, Paddock testifies about that fall and gives us fresh insight into his mind 4 years before the shooting. Paddock moved from Las Vegas casino to casino, at one point staying maybe upwards of 3 weeks out of a month, he said. A high roller, his hotel stays were comped 95% of the time. Bets range from $100 to $1,350 each time I push the button. Speaking of a peak year, asks an attorney, how many dollars are we talking? I average 14 hours a day, 365 days a year, over 200 million coin through. When Paddock says on a given night he'll bet $1 million, an attorney replies, that's a lot of money. No, it's not. Paddock called video poker a game of discipline, at times appearing condescending and sarcastic as he explains to his attorney why he stays sober while gambling. At the stakes I play, you want to have all your wits about you. Paddock's home in Mesquite, Nevada suggests an upper-middle-class retired life. For easy access to a doctor, Paddock testified he paid a yearly retainer fee to Nevada internist Dr. Stephen Winkler. Paddock says Winkler prescribed him Valium. Why? It's for anxiousness. Rage, aggressiveness, and irritability are among the possible side effects of taking Valium, according to the manufacturer of the drug. The Las Vegas Review-Journal reported that Dr. Winkler prescribed him Valium in June of this year. CNN could not independently confirm that information. Despite all the claims about his high-rolling ways, Paddock testified on the day he fell in the Cosmopolitan, he wore his typical clothing. I always wear black Nike sweatpants that are nylon or polyester. On his feet, black flip-flops that he wore 98% of the time. Life was better before the economic meltdown, he testified, saying Vegas casinos comped less and less, meaning he visited Sin City less. What happened to the economy in 2007, he said? It tanked. Las Vegas went into the gutter with a lot of other things. They quit giving away freebies. It just wasn't worth coming out here as often.
Okay, so what do we know about what do we know about Stephen Paddock? This is him in a sworn deposition, he sued the Cosmo, right? He went to sue the Cosmo for this slip and fall thing. Right. He sued them in 2011, and then I think this is from 2013. At that time, Cosmo is owned by MGM. Now it's owned by Blackstone Group, right?
I think it was owned by Deutsche Bank at that time.
At that time, it was Deutsche Bank. Okay, so he's at Cosmo. What do we know about him so far?
A heavy gambler.
Heavy gambler. What else? What else would you say about his personality? I mean, they're talking about. He says, "I always wear black sweats. I always wear these black flip flops. I gamble 14 hours at a time."
Right.
Right. He's being prescribed Valium. Now, this doesn't surprise me. He's a high stakes gambler. I know a few high rollers. One in particular who I know, he comes into town. He usually comes in with an entourage because his shit is super comped at MGM. And so I get to go and hang out with the guys who are there. And one of our friends in particular, his whole job is to keep him calm while he's playing.
Wow.
Because, like he says, you want to keep your wits about you. The anxiety can. So what I'm sure if he would get anxious because he was down and he would need to get back up, he'd take a Valium. Now, lots of people take Valium, and that's not. I've never heard of Valium contributing to somebody going on a premeditated shooting rage. It just doesn't happen. But that's all they've got, right? So let's learn some other things that have not necessarily been reported about this guy. Okay, so we get a better view of him. Let's look at this allergies thing. I found this very interesting. This is from Reuters. Talking about Mary Lou Danley, his girlfriend. She was sympathetic in dealing with Paddock's allergy-driven quirks, Eric Paddock told Reuters. Paddock often wore brown cloth gardening gloves to prevent rashes from contact with cleaning chemical residues, the brother wrote. He was also allergic to many pills and was unable to renew his pilot's license. He had flown his plane since he was a teenager because he could not take the pills needed to reduce his blood pressure, so he's got high blood pressure. At casinos where he was a regular, he was such a valued customer that staff obliged his request to wash his room's carpets with plain water. Quote, "The reason Mary Lou looks so plain in that picture," they keep posting of her, "is because for him she would not wear any perfumes or hairsprays or anything with scents in it because it affected him," Eric Paddock wrote, referring to a passport-style photo of Danley that has been widely circulated by news outlets. Okay, so Christian, we've got a little bit of additional information about this guy. Allergy-driven quirks.
Right.
Meaning he wants things very specific.
That's pretty gambler, like hardcore gambler personality trait.
He's got like almost obsessive compulsive disorder.
Obsessive compulsive, yeah.
So people with OCD, they're all about habits, right? They don't leave out of their habits. I find this allergy thing to be important. As we're going to run out of timeline of things that some people don't know that happen that don't make sense with who he is in this case. Other thing about him, let's just go over a little bit about his past that I think is important. Let's throw up this Lockheed thing. Las Vegas shooter this is from Fox Business, worked for predecessor of Lockheed Martin. The man identified as the shooter responsible for killing and wounding hundreds in Las Vegas, Stephen Paddock, previously worked for a company that later became Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin, the world's largest defense contractor, said the retired Paddock was employed by a predecessor company about 30 years ago. Quote, "Stephen Paddock worked for a predecessor company of Lockheed Martin from 1985 until 1988. We're cooperating with authorities to answer questions they may have about Mr. Paddock and his time with the company," Lockheed Martin said in a statement. Lockheed Martin did not disclose which company employed Paddock. The Bethesda, Maryland-based defense contractor was created through the merger of Lockheed Corporation and Martin Marietta in 1995. So he worked for a predecessor, so it could have been Lockheed Corporation, it could have been Martin Marietta. This is an interesting time period, though. So from 1985 to 1988, this is Cold War. This is Cold War. He's working as an accountant for a defense contractor, okay? If you go right now and look at Lockheed jobs and you look at accountants, financial analysts, you're going to need clearance. A great many of those jobs require that you can qualify for top secret clearance. That's important.
Interesting.
That's important. This is an individual, and he only worked for 3 years for Lockheed Martin. But he loved planes. We know he loved guns. Would make sense that he would work for a weapons manufacturer,
Right.
aerospace. So what do we have here? We have an aerospace weapons manufacturer connection. Also, he stops working there. Then where does he go and work? Then where does he work? How many people work as an accountant for Lockheed for only 3 years
Right.
and then don't continue on in that industry? Especially someone who loves to fly. He had a pilot's license until recently, until he couldn't fly because of blood pressure medication, and he owned 2 planes. And he loved guns.
Wow.
And there's nothing else. Where is the employment history for this guy? There's no employment history. He's a retiree. Retired from where? Retired from where? This is an inconsistency. But we do know that the last job that we have for him puts him working for a defense contractor and puts him, it very likely, as someone who has a top secret or some high-level security clearance. Probably at that time top secret because he was working for Lockheed during the Cold War. This is like SR-71 time right there, man, that he's working for them. All right? So this is what we know a little bit about him. Now, let's go into, because this is where it starts getting weird, and these are the things that no one's talking about that I find to be the most important inconsistencies in this whole thing. So, here's the guy, okay? We know a little bit about this guy. We know he lives outside of Nevada, retirement community, sleepy retirement community. When he comes to Vegas, he comes and he plays at places where he can get comped rooms. He's very big on the comped rooms. He likes the comped rooms. Okay? He's a creature of habit. Not straying from his habits. He always wears the same sweatpants. He always wears the same flip-flops.
Compulsive gambler.
Compulsive gambler. Habits. When an individual who has certain habits breaks those habits, you take notice. That's what was happening just in the weeks preceding this. So let's talk about this story. This was where I started saying, okay, something's fucked up. This is the festival story. This is from the LA Times. Mandalay Bay gunman spent 2 weeks in Las Vegas before killings and researched outdoor concerts in other large cities, according to the LA Times. This from the Times. In the first week of August, Paddock reserved rooms at an upscale hotel overlooking Chicago's Grant Park during Lollapalooza, one of the nation's largest outdoor music festivals, a law enforcement source said. The event was headlined by major acts including Chance the Rapper, The Killers, and Muse, and attendees included Sasha and Malia Obama, the daughters of President Obama. It would have been a target similar to the one in Las Vegas, huge crowds packed into an outdoor space beneath tall buildings, but with far more people. Paddock was ultimately a no-show for this reservation in Chicago. Quote, "We can confirm that there was no guest under that name who stayed at our hotel in August during the Lollapalooza Music Festival," said Blackstone Hotel spokeswoman Emmy Carragher. After paying for his girlfriend's trip to visit family in the Philippines, Paddock appears to have been in downtown Las Vegas from September 14th to 28th, according to records reviewed by the representatives of the El Cortez Hotel and Casino, who spoke to the Times on condition of anonymity. The representative said Paddock did not spend the night there or make a reservation, but he was seen in the El Cortez on September 16th, and he obtained a player's card and played slots and blackjack on September 17th, buying in on the latter with $40. Representatives said Paddock won about $300. He only played one time, one of the representatives said, enough to get a meal. The next week, Paddock returned to El Cortez on September 21st and 24th. At some point, he ate 2 meals with his winnings. He cashed out his ticket on September 24th, his sole use of the casino's ATM machines. The timeline overlaps with the 3-day outdoor Life is Beautiful concert, which ran from September 22nd to 24th and which featured similarly high-profile acts as Lollapalooza. Paddock booked an Airbnb in a condo building overlooking the Life is Beautiful music festival, leading investigators to gather video footage from the building to learn more. Quote, "Was he doing pre-surveillance? We don't know yet," Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo said on Wednesday. El Cortez representatives disputed reports that Paddock was kicked out of the property or that the hotel was sold out around the time of Life is Beautiful. Casino representatives said he was not on the radar of management because he did not win or lose a substantial sum. After Paddock was identified, a compliance officer for El Cortez entered his name into their system and determined he had a brief, limited interaction there, representatives said. The hotel leaders then contacted police to share their findings. Okay, Christian, so here's what we have. Paddock, on the 16th of September. So let's first do this. It says he sent his girlfriend to the Philippines, and we'll cover that. So Mary Lou Danley, his girlfriend, she flies from LA to Tokyo to Philippines, and we'll cover those dates. But the important date is that the either leaving date or the arrival date is September 14th, approximately. So, September 16th, this dude's in El Cortez. He didn't have a player's card. He didn't have a player's card for El Cortez. He went to El Cortez on the 16th, he got a player's card, and he played slots and blackjack on September 17th, buying in on the ladder with $40. He played blackjack.
And this is a guy that
plays video poker.
Video poker and up to $1 million a night or something like that, right?
Correct.
High stakes.
So, and he's going to a place where he doesn't get anything comped. He's going downtown to the El Cortez when he's top tier at Caesars and top tier at MGM. Why? This is huge.
Yeah.
Why is this guy, like, for people who don't know, El Cortez is kind of a dumpy little old hotel in an area that was previously completely forgotten and just had homeless people like wandering the streets. It's a dump. It's a dump. The other thing about it is it's dirty. It's gross in there. And this is someone who's like big about the hygiene. Okay, but the story is he's down there. So we have this story about the Ogden. But let's first, so this is strange. So let's cover this little section because I believe something's happening, and I believe by the end of this, you'll agree. I think that everybody can figure out what the hell is happening here. So he booked some hotels in Chicago. Let's examine the Chicago story. So let's go Chicago. This is when it starts. This is when the story begins. Okay. This is from TMZ. Stephen Paddock had set his sights on Lollapalooza in Chicago and even booked 2 rooms in a hotel that overlooked a massive outdoor venue, TMZ has learned. Then they have a picture actually off the computer. Check out this pic of a computer screen at the Blackstone Hotel in Chicago, located across the street from the venue Grant Park, where 400,000 people, including Malia Obama, squeezed in over 4 days to watch big musical acts. Paddock booked 1 room for August 1st, 2017, 2 days before the August 3rd kickoff. Paddock then booked a second room for an August 3rd arrival. Both rooms had an August 6th checkout date. That's when Lollapalooza ended. The hotel directly overlooked the main stage as well as several adjoining stages. It also overlooks the main entrance and exit, where thousands of people file through, and the hotel had a bird's eye view of the crowd. We're told Paddock specifically requested both rooms be a view room, which only face Grant Park, where the concert was being held. And here's the scariest part. It's difficult, if not impossible, to flee because of Lake Michigan. Sources tell Paddock had never booked a room at the hotel before, nor had his girlfriend. So, Christian, don't get off this because the timeline's very important here. So he calls up, and you see that on the 23rd of July, okay, he calls up and he books a room for August 1st through August 6th. Okay? He calls up on the 23rd.
Yeah.
4 days later, on the 27th, he calls up and he books a room for August 3rd through 6th, meaning later check-in, but both rooms overlap. Now, let's forget about a shooter, okay?
Right.
Forget about a shooter. Leave this up so people can see it. We'll talk this through. Forget about a shooter. You work at a hotel, right? I actually have been a front desk clerk before. Front desk clerk, you know the dates of Lollapalooza when they're coming.
Right.
Guy calls up. He says, okay, I want a room from the 1st through the 6th, and I want it to overlook Grant Park. Mm-hmm. What do you think he's there for?
Lollapalooza,
right?
Yeah.
He wants,
Right.
specifically, during the time of Lollapalooza, he wants to overlook it.
Uh-huh.
He's going to get there a few days early, check out the city, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then he calls 4 days later, and he says, hey, I've already got a room, but I want to get a second room. But I only want it for the 3rd through the 6th. Now, the 3rd is the opening day of Lollapalooza. He wants both rooms. Why is he getting the second room? It's not a shooter.
Right.
Why is he getting the second room? What would be your first inclination?
Girlfriend or friends?
Friends, right? Mm-hmm. It's a party.
Yeah.
He's traveling with a party of people. They're all going to Lollapalooza. Mm-hmm. Now, how I read this. Now, he didn't have friends. He didn't have friends.
Right.
We know this. Mm-hmm. He did not have friends. And there's no fucking gambling there. This dude's a compulsive gambler. There's no gambling there.
Yeah.
So, this is interesting. This is a break in a pattern. Who are these friends? And where did they come from? Mm-hmm. Now, other thing about it. He's a 64-year-old man. Okay? Compulsive gambler. Does all of this. What do you think, how likely do you think it is he wanted to go and check out Chance the Rapper?
Seriously. Slim to none.
Slim to none. But yet he specifically wants, we know he's there for Lollapalooza.
Yeah.
He's booking it for Lollapalooza, clearly. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to. What would make a 64-year-old man book rooms during Lollapalooza? What would make him do that?
If he was... Well, I would say if he was planning something. If he was...
Take out
the shooter.
Take out the shooting. A shooting never happened here.
Uh-huh.
This is before you know a shooting. You see this happening. What would make a 64-year-old man decide to book hotel rooms for a music festival that a whole bunch of young people are going to? What would motivate him to do that?
I don't know.
Really? Well, I think there's a lot of listeners out there that know. And I think that I know as well.
Huh.
Okay? And you're going to see why this adds up with his behavior. Because he had a new young girlfriend.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He had a new young girlfriend who said, oh, I really love music festivals. I'd love to go to Lollapalooza in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And he says, I booked guess what? I booked us a hotel room. We're going to go to Lollapalooza. Oh my God, we're going to Lollapalooza. We're going to Lollapalooza. Can my friends come? Oh, are you going to go? I don't want you to have to go with me.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Can my friends come?
That makes sense.
Could you? Oh, do you think you could book a room for my friends?
Huh.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Well, yeah, that way they can take care of me. And you can be looking down on me, and like you can see me, and I can wave to you from the hotel room. You can check on me. But he never shows up to Lollapalooza. Right? But then a month later, let's go with this. Here's another weird thing. Let's go with this long term. This is another thing nobody's talking about, nobody's reporting upon. This is from the Las Vegas Sun. Las Vegas gunmen had sought long-term lease at Ogden. The Route 91 Harvest Festival gunman began the process of obtaining a long-term rental unit at a downtown high-rise condo building weeks before the Life is Beautiful festival, according to a letter sent to the Ogden residents by its homeowners association. In the letter sent Thursday, it's revealed that an outside real estate agent showed Stephen Paddock a privately owned unit inside the 21-story residential building on September 8th, and he later completed a rental application. The real estate agent provided Paddock with a one-year lease agreement, but the gunman never responded to receiving it. They do not know why. It previously has been reported that Paddock rented and stayed in multiple units over several days before and during Life is Beautiful, which ran September 22nd through 24th, and drew an attendance of 137,000 people over 3 days. Sheriff Joe Lombardo said those units were acquired through Airbnb, a popular web platform that allows people to rent out their rooms or entire residences. So, Christian, again, here we go. Here's this guy, September 8th. So this is the week before his girlfriend leaves. Mm-hmm. This is the week before he's in El Cortez. Mm-hmm. The week before he's spotted otherwise downtown. Mm-hmm. He has a real estate agent show him a condo for lease on a long-term lease in the Ogden. Now, this is a 64-year-old man who lives, owns a house in Mesquite, and when he comes to Vegas, has his rooms comped. Before he had said he would stay 5 nights out of a week in a comped hotel room. What would make a 64-year-old man go and try to lease a condo at the Ogden, which is fucking Party Central, where there's kids passing by you all day, every day, puking in the elevators. It's below it is actual literal nightclubs. Mm-hmm. What would make a 64-year-old man want to take out a year-long lease on an apartment at the Ogden? Go.
New girlfriend.
Yes. That one's clear.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah. Yep.
That one is so obvious. Now, then let's go to the next. Let's look at this Ogden story. So, this is about his time at the Ogden, all right? Paddock rented a room overlooking the Life is Beautiful festival in downtown Las Vegas a week earlier, Lombardo said. Lombardo said Paddock used room-sharing site Airbnb to rent a room at the Ogden during the festival, which ran from September 22nd to 24th. He said investigators had not yet determined why Paddock rented the room or whether he was engaged in pre-surveillance of the music and art event. Quote, "We don't know yet," he said of Paddock's presence in the condominium complex. Now, here's what's important, because this is a pattern. So, what do you remember about his booking pattern in Chicago? What do we know? He booked rooms. Oh, no, go back to it. Because people will want to see this. In Chicago, we know that he booked multiple rooms and that the dates were not all the same across the rooms. Here's where it gets. Oh, no. Now this is covered up. We're going to have to wait for this to wait for it to go away. Don't go back to us. Okay. Don't go back to us. So let's see when this goes away. So what we would expect, if my theory is right, that he had a new girlfriend who said she liked music festivals and wanted to go with her friends, but for some reason they couldn't go to Chicago. This is Las Vegas Review-Journal. According to the law enforcement source, Paddock tried to get a room at El Cortez, but it was sold out. So he rented 3 rooms at the Ogden, 150 Las Vegas Boulevard North. One room was booked between September 17th and 22nd. A second room was booked from September 21st to 23rd. And the third, September 24th to 28th. So basically what you have is you've got these 3 rooms, right? That 2 of them overlap, September 17th through 22nd. Now here's the thing. This thing doesn't even start till the 22nd. So there's 5 days that he's renting a room where Life is Beautiful will not even be there. Then he books a second room, 21st through 23rd. Okay? That is during the festival. Mm-hmm. Then he books a third room that goes September 24th through 28th. Again, 4 days, no festival. Now, if you're going to shoot up a festival, the 21st through 23rd makes sense.
Right.
The other 2 make no sense. Mm-hmm. But if you're putting your new girlfriend up in a place, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Especially if she doesn't necessarily live in town. She's coming in from out of town. Mm-hmm. This is how you're connecting with her. It also makes sense of why he would go down to the El Cortez to gamble. Killing time. He's killing time. Mm-hmm. He's going to the closest. The El Cortez, for people who don't know, is next door to the Ogden. You walk out of the Ogden, you walk across the street, you're inside the El Cortez.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Mm-hmm. New girlfriend.
Yeah.
Now, also reports when he's in Mandalay Bay, these reports of him being with a mystery woman. You can go back to us now. These reports of him being with a mystery woman.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, you talk about 9 times out of 10 when someone gets murdered,